This International Women's Day, Australian Red Cross proudly launches a special podcast led by our New South Wales Youth Advisory Committee. In this podcast series, we shine a spotlight on the remarkable people in service at the Australian Red Cross. This inspiring series will share their stories of people who are making a difference across Australia and around the world in partnership with the Red Cross and celebrate these extraordinary people who serve through voluntary and community work. We honour their service and hope their journeys inspire young people to give back, serve selflessly, and discover deeper meaning in contributing to our communities. We begin by showcasing women's stories and contributions, but we will continue to expand our conversations to include diverse teams, volunteers, and individuals across the organisation. Together, these voices will showcase the breadth, impact, and humanity of the work carried out by the Australian Red Cross, inspiring listeners to better understand and perhaps even join this powerful mission of service. Our guest today is Marlene Arditto, whose story is woven into the very fabric of the Australian Red Cross. Marlene Arditto has been part of the Australian Red Cross community since 1945, a remarkable legacy of commitment and compassion. She started as a voluntary aid detachment nurse in the Australian Red Cross in the year 1957, dedicating many years to caring for others with skill, dignity, and heart. She also served as a zone representative in Sydney, further strengthening the organisation through leadership and community engagement. Across decades of unwavering service, Marlene has devoted her life to supporting both the Red Cross and broader community. In recognition of her extraordinary contribution, she has also received a 70-year-long service medal and Distinguished Service Award, and an honorary life membership from the Australian Red Cross. Beyond her work with the Red Cross, Marlene's dedication has been felt more widely. She has been nominated for an Edna Ryan Award, which celebrates women who have made a meaningful feminist difference in New South Wales, an Australian Capital Territory. It is truly an honour to welcome Marlene today, a woman whose life of service continues to inspire us all. Marlene, thank you for joining us today, and it is an honour to have you here to talk to me. To begin, could you briefly share your Red Cross journey?
Well, it's been a very long one, but I'm delighted to have been invited to tell you a little bit about it. I guess one of the things that I notice most is the big change that's come forward from the sort of things, starting from my adult service, leaving out koalas, was the sort of duties that we did and what's undertaken today. They're still serving humanity, but I just find nowadays everything's much more specialised, and everyone's got their own particular things, whereas we had to be everything.
Yeah.
Didn't matter whether you were doing nursing, whether you were in hospitals, it might be escort duty, it might be some work out of Victoria Barracks, it might be, being an usherette at some function. We had to do everything, so I think that's what made it so interesting for a young person, was the variety. You never knew what was going to come up, and took a long lot of your life, actually. You had to try and stream in a boyfriend if you were lucky. So
was there a specific moment early on that made you think, this is where I'm meant to be?
Well, I think it was the day I actually joined Red Cross for the first time. I was in, second class? No, I wasn't. I was in first class at school, or grade 1, I think it's called these days. And a lady came, I think she must have been some sort of Red Cross organiser, and she told us a little story showed us the Red Cross, and said if ever we were in trouble in all of our lives, or wanted something, or were worried, and we saw this sign, we could go and somebody would help us. And then she said, but if you feel that's something you want to do and you pay your threepence today, you can become a member. So I joined up then. I thought that was a nice thing to do, and I've really never changed my mind. It cost us an extra threepence for a badge, I think. But I went from there, so I don't know who the organiser was or the lady or anything about her, but, she was certainly an inspiration to me.
And I can see you've got some medals on today. Do you mind just saying what they're about?
Yeah, well, this one here, that's the 70 years of service. So the next one along is Distinguished Service Award, and this one's the Honorary Life Membership. So those are the three.
So I just wanted to ask, who or what has been your biggest source of inspiration throughout your service with Red Cross?
Well, it was certainly, apart from that original lady who I don't remember, when I joined the voluntary aid detachments, it was certainly, she was Mrs. Persia Porter, who later became Lady Galligan, so you'll see both names around Red Cross very much. In fact, her photograph's out at the reception desk. So she was certainly my greatest one, because I was in the VADs from 1957 and really until they wound up. So it was a long time.
And can you speak more about the VAD?
Yes, well, we were a service organisation rather than fundraising. So we did all sorts of activities. You never knew what you were going to get. So you should be faced with anything and you were supposed to be able to cope with it, which, sometimes was quite difficult. We did have a lot of training. We had weekly meetings at which we did training, first aid, home nursing. In those days we were still partly under the Army, so we had to do Army drilling and Army lectures, etc. I always thought it was a wonderful thing and gave you a very broad view of what the Red Cross was about. So,
was there a particular moment of triumph or a story that you remember?
Well, I'm not sure it was a triumph, but certainly one of the duties that I did that stood out was the work that I did every second Saturday morning for many years was at the Cullen Park Hospital. We used to have to go around and distribute comfort parcels to all the ex-servicemen, and there were a lot of them. But in those days, of course, all the modern drugs and things hadn't been invented. So you still, and the Christmas one where we went into the lock wards, and very scary for a 20-year-old, not a nice duty at all. But the men really did a lot of them really appreciated, and they'd come around and pick something out of the garden and give you a flower.
That's so
I
cute.
really appreciated us coming, because I think we're the only bit of the outside world that they saw from one week to the next. So it was a gratifying duty, but I wouldn't say it was particularly, wasn't a particularly nice one, but you did feel you were spreading the Red Cross word. So that was very worthwhile.
So what does it mean to you to be a woman leading within a humanitarian organisation?
Well, I think in any organisation, not just humanitarian ones, women's voices are very important.
Yeah.
I think I've managed to speak up, which is something that took me many years to do, but it was through my training and involvement with Red Cross that I got that training and had the courage to speak up, because it does make a difference. Even in your workplace at meetings and things, you often get the men taking over and the girls sit back and then say, I wish they'd said that, I wish they'd said that. So when I was in the office work, I made sure I told my juniors and people how to use the microphone and how to speak up at the meeting, and that really made a difference. So, but that was coming from what I'd learned through Red Cross. Because I mean, when I actually started, I wouldn't have said boo to a goose, I don't think. So that's good, but it's certainly most important because, women are there, and particularly in humanitarian organisations, there are so many women. Probably the majority still, I would think, are women, and they do make a difference. So encourage you young ones to make your voice heard. Don't sit back and then have lots of comments after the meeting's over, or because there are ways, and we have quite a different way of looking at things than the men do sometimes. And I think that's important, because you need input from both sides to make any change, and that's certainly important.
So you began volunteering with the Red Cross at a young age. What inspired you to begin volunteering so young?
Well, as I said, I was at school, but after I left school, when I joined the VAD, I used to see these people walking around near where I worked in these blue uniforms, and they did in one year have a great big promotional campaign to try and a big thing at lunchtime in Martin Place with all the VADs were there, and I thought, that sounds interesting, so I went down and found out about about it, and suddenly I was there doing my initial training, so that got that. But I must say, I think you young people have so many opportunities that weren't there when I was young. So just make the most of it, girls.
Yeah.
You can make a difference. And some of you, I think it's important to look what international humanitarian law is doing. So many branches of Red Cross to get interested in, so I'm sure some of the young ones are interested in law and legal things, so that's a big issue, and I'm sure they certainly need young people's input there, because after all, the future world's going to be yours, not mine.
What gives you hope right now?
Well, I have a lot of hope handing over to younger people. A lot of my friends sort of say, oh, you won't get volunteers from the young ones, they don't do anything. But I don't agree with that. I admit that it's a very different way to what we did, but certainly if you put the call out for volunteers to do all manner of things, everybody fronts up. And so I'm quite confident you'll have your own ways to do things, but if you keep it the core of it, that you're looking after people.
During your time with the Red Cross, are there any friendships or important people that you've met along the way that you wanted to share about?
Oh, well, there's a group of us that we were in VAs together, all went separate ways, and of course the VADs haven't been around for 20 years, but we still keep in contact. We meet a couple of times a year, so they're very lasting friendships, and there's always the laughter of what we shared. And in fact, a couple of my best friends are people that I did meet as a VAD.
As International Women's Day falls on March 8th, we are so thrilled to have such an impactful and inspiring first guest. In New South Wales and the ACT, women make up a significant portion of our membership, and we want to celebrate the incredible women who bring the mission of the Australian Red Cross to life.
So thank you for joining us today, Marlene. To finish, could you share one piece of advice for young people moving forward in the Red Cross?
Well, I think the big thing is to remember Red Cross ahead of yourself. Red Cross is bigger, so give that preference and have to say, no, I'm doing Red Cross duty. So you've got to put that. Red Cross is bigger than you, and I think if people remember that, they'll be very happy to go on volunteering. So.
Well, thank you, Marlene, for coming today. It's been an honour listening to you. And thank you for listening to the first New South Wales Youth Advisory Committee podcast episode.
Good.